Mr. Toastmaster, thank you. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, are you Blanche or Betty? Please do not depend on the assistance of strangers. I'm here to talk to you about patient care advocate forms or healthcare designations. I would like to start by talking to you about Blanche. Blanche is in her 80s. About this time last year, she was living in the home that where she had resided for almost 40 years. She has advanced dementia. At the time, and still to this day, she's not aware of her surroundings. She was not aware of the deplorable conditions in which she was living. She would have been ashamed at the condition of her house about a year ago. She was unconcerned about her bed sores and the infections that she had, as well as other physical ailments. Fortunately, she did come to the attention of the Adult Protective Service agency for the county. She was taken to a hospital. Over the course of the next several weeks, she did receive the medical care that she needed. However, she also ended up eventually in a nursing home, which was less than adequate. And she also ended up under the care of a professional guardian appointed by the probate court. How did this happen? And do you want it to happen to you? She had family, she had income, she had assets. There were some problems with the family, admittedly, which we don't need to go into, but the other element that she was lacking was a health care directive properly drafted. That's what I would like to talk to you about today is what are health care directives and what are the 5 things that you need to do or to remember when you sit down with your attorney and prepare them. The health care directive, of course, is a legal document. It gives an agent or a person authority to make legal decisions for you on your behalf when you are not able to do that. The key elements of the healthcare advocate form or the healthcare designation is that it takes effect immediately when you become unable to make those decisions for yourself. The courts are not open on the weekends, the courts are not open at night, the courts are not open on holidays. Those are the times when many of us have a need for emergency care and we are not able to make decisions about our health either because of a stroke or a serious injury or some other matter. If a court proceeding does have to get started and you have a healthcare directive, the healthcare directive trumps the court proceeding to some extent. So that's another reason why you would want to have a healthcare directive. Court proceedings in probate especially can be very expensive, they can be time consuming, they're public. They don't always, as in the case of Blanche, they don't always address the needs that need to be addressed, and they often, if it's not done properly, are going to involve strangers in your personal decisions about your health care. So what are the 5 things that you need to address or take into consideration when you get ready to prepare your health care directive? Number 1, obviously you need to name a representative. You need to name your agent. You need to name a backup agent. The state law does have a list of people to name that the court should name according to a priority, but that priority doesn't really apply to most of us. The court might, the statute says you have to, for a guardian, if you didn't have a health care directive, if you had to go to court, if the doctor had to go to court, or the hospital had to go to court, or your family had to go to court to get a guardian appointed, the first person would be a spouse, would be appointed. Many people don't have spouses. The second person would be an adult child. Many people don't have adult children, or if they do, they don't know which one the court's not going to know which one is best qualified. If you happen to be living with a long-term relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you don't have a spouse. You may not want to have your adult child involved. You may not want to have your parent involved if you're in a long-term relationship. The court doesn't really care about that. They go to number 3, which is your parent. So these are some of the reasons why you want to have a patient care directive, so that health care directive, so you can name your representative as well as a backup. The second and third thing you need to consider are giving specific directions about end-of-life decisions as well as ongoing healthcare issues. Each one of us comes from a different background in terms of family, culture, religion, personal experiences. Each of you has formulated or thought about how you want, what you would want to happen at the end of your life. You need to put those instructions in writing. Similarly, we have thought about, or should think about, what do we want to, how do we want to be taken care of if we don't have the physical capacity or the mental capacity to take care of ourselves? Do we want to be taken care of at home? Do we want to go into an assisted living? Do we want to go into a nursing home? Those are issues that you can address and should address in your healthcare directive. So number 1 is name your agent and backups. Number 2 and 3 is have specific instructions for end of life as well as continuing healthcare issues. Number 4 is coordinate this document with your other estate planning documents, whether it be a trust or power of attorney. You want to make sure that the powers that you're giving to your agent for healthcare purposes are consistent with the powers that the trustee might have in connection with your property. Number 5, you don't want to put this form, and this is just an example, it's only 1 page. You really need to have, the amount of information is really going to be several pages. Don't put it in the bottom drawer. Give it to your doctor. Give it to your agent. Give it to your family members. Talk it over with your family members. Take it with you if you travel, and consider even getting a card. You can have a service where it's available 24 hours a day via fax or email. So those are the things that you need to take into account to have a proper health care directive. It's got to be in writing. You need to name the agent. You need to have the instructions for end of life as well as ongoing care. You want it to be coordinated with your other healthcare estate planning documents, and you want to have it broadcasted and review it. Give it to the people that need it and review it regularly. If you do these things, chances are you will not end up like Blanche, but you would rather end up like Betty. Betty also is in her 80s. She came to me on the onset of her dementia diagnosis while she still had capability. We sat down and we spent time working on her healthcare directive with these instructions. So now her family knows what she wants to do in these various situations. Please be like Betty. Don't rely on the assistance of strangers. Mr. Toastmaster.